TRM, invested in your tomorrow.
We're smooth 98.1. Good morning and welcome to Freshly Pressed. My name is Omasheye Ashenua. It is time to roll out the headlines and then get the analysts to come in and help us make understanding of all of the stories. And then, of course, you most importantly would get all of your thoughts across to us on 0809 would be where we get it. So that said, let's say big welcome to Devo Korea. Good morning to you. All right. Um, okay, we'll find out after, before the end of the show, if I have money or you have more, or I will be taking from you or I'll be giving to you. But good morning, Lakunle Yusuf.
Good morning, Divo. Good morning, Mas. Good morning, our dear listeners. Good to be back in the studio after a break.
All right, let's find out the man. We'll go to the man who's got money this morning, and that's talking about Devo Corey, who's starting a money war on the show. And let's see, from the Nation newspaper is where we'd like to get you started. It says here President Tinubu seeks Senate's approval for 8.69 billion US dollars and then 100 million euros external loan. That's what the Nation newspaper is reporting. Perhaps this might be the reason why Devo is asking if I've got money or he's got to loan to the federal government. But help us make sense why, uh, with debt profile at 87 billion trillion naira, we're still piling yet another one in.
And as you mentioned, Nigeria has a debt situation. Um, some will challenge that it's working for us. Some will say it's a problem. But basically, um, we are literally paying back almost using the money that we have. Let's say we make about 10 trillion in terms of revenue. We're paying back almost the full amount of that 10 trillion back to the debtors or where we got the money from. So debt to revenue service ratio is about 95, 99%. That's a bad situation. So that means you don't have money to move forward. So to move forward, you have to borrow. I've said this so that people can understand why government always puts forward this plan, because we're not going to get anywhere. Now, at another time, we'll look at how borrowing is done so that it works for your good, so that it reduces your indebtedness in the long run whilst you are still growing as a nation. And the presidents did indicate that about $8 million, $8 billion to be borrowed, with about 100 million euro coming from various sources. And at the World Bank has indicated that they would be interested in lending some of that money. That's to the tune of about, let's say, 1 billion, while the African Development Bank is looking at lending us about 1.5 billion. Now, the obviously for every amount that we borrow, you must have a plan, a fiscal plan as to how that money will be spent. And they said that this is to fund projects placed in the budgets that cut across every sector. We don't have time to break down the budget, but the budget is the roadmap as to how government wants to implement the dividends of democracy. So our question as citizens is to not only monitor what is borrowed.
All right, Devo, if you're still there. Hello, Devo. All right, so when you get the connection, we'll get back to Devo. But so far, he's been able to make us understand the reason why the government is borrowing. But the question would have been, what would not borrowing this money do to us?
So I'm not imagining that. Okay, so the 8.69 billion and 100 million euros would come in one tranche, right? I think that referring to this, there is an MTEF, that's medium term expenditure framework that we've always worked with, and the current one lasts till I think end of this year.
Then the new one
And
is
then there's
passed.
a new one takes us to 2025 or thereabout, if I remember correctly. So I think that the plan to borrow is in this document, and this government inherited this document and are working with the plan in there to borrow money at specific time. What they've just done is that they found somebody who will borrow them part of the money that is in that framework. So I'm imagining then that this money is not like is sitting down somewhere, they just give them one at a go. They will take it in bits and pieces over that period for it to make sense for whatever they need to do. And then there's a plan. There's usually, okay, what do you want to spend the money on? What we've always had for the last 8 years of the last 8 years, what we've mostly had is that infrastructure. But when you look at the amount of money that's been spent in the last 9 to 8 years, do we see commensurate physical or fiscal effect of that volume of money? Well, I can leave that answer to everybody because all of us will differ based on our expectation of what should be. So we no country in the world, everybody in the world borrows, right? But what we do with it is what is important, just like you highlighted.
All right, thank you very much. So let's get on to next headline, the Tribune newspaper, and that's for you, Lakunle Yusuf, this morning. And so this one is coming. It says the Senate rejects Electoral Act Amendment Bill. One would have thought with the hue and cry coming from the recently concluded elections, and to hear of this, what could be the reason? What's missing in this amendment that could have caused the rejection?
If there's anything that I would commend the National Assembly since 1999 for, it's the fact that they've not run away or they've not shied from amending this electoral act. I think is about the act in Nigeria that has been most amended to date, and where it is today is far better than where it was in 1999. Of course, there are still many places that needs to be done.
We've had the 2010, we've had the 2022.
We had 2010, we had 2013, we had 2019, I think. So I think we've had 3 years. So if we look at it from that perspective, right, it is good that we continuously update this thing so that the things that that drives our elections to be ended up and decided in the courts, right, will be removed. I've also been one of those advocates of the fact that, look, all election matters should end before swearing in, so that we don't find ourselves where we found ourselves today. Now, election was conducted, say, for example, for House of Rep in one of the constituencies in those states. Now they are going to conduct another one now. Why? Because the winner of that election gave up that seat to go and become a minister. Same thing for the Senate in I think Sokoto. There's House of Rep in Lagos. The man who won gave up that seat to go and become chief of staff to the president. So these are the kind of things that we need to have because of the cost to the country. We are saying we don't have money. So when you look at it from that perspective, this argument that we should do nomination, then when you would also take it a little back, remember when Rotimi Amechi became governor, how he became governor, the Supreme Court ruled then that we voted for political parties. I'm not aware that the Supreme Court has changed his mind about that, right? So in that perspective, when you look at it, so okay, so if party A wins that seat today, and then the man who is there gives it up or passes on or whatever reason is vacant, INEC should just conduct a intra-party election for replacement of that individual.
Because it is parties that were elected, not individuals.
Not the individual. It was the basis with which Rotimi Amechi became governor. Because we remember very well. I'm not aware, except that the Supreme Court has reversed itself on that principle, right? So when you look
So
at
even upon death, also that's understandable now. So even let's say the inevitable, that's divine intervention. Someone a seat holder passes on.
for whatever reason the seat becomes vacant, to cut the cost, this argument makes sense. But here we are, the politicians being what they are, everybody thinks that I stand my chance, and then our penchant for wanting to spend money for everything, INEC itself will not agree to this, you know. So but for the basis of right thinking, I think it's the right thing to do.
All right, thank you very much. Divo, up here. So you're here now. Let's get on to this next one from the Nation newspaper. And it speaks of the former CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, to remain in prison over failure to meet 300 million naira bail. And for a man who, if you match this, your response coming with how good offices would attract a lot of friends, but at this time of tribulation, can you imagine that a personality as of his status cannot raise this bond? Or let's even what happened to his former principal? That's the former President Buhari. Can he reach out to do this for him?
Thomas, it's like you're fishing for responses. But you see here, I thought you were even going to ask what happened to his friends, right? The former CBN governor, Governor Emefiele, has been embattled, and I guess it's not far from many people to connect the dots as to why his travails are still on till now, given the fact that he put himself into the political murky waters as official, as a top official of an agency that was actually meant to be independent. However, from one case to another, it seems as if the politics against him is not smiling. Okay, let's leave public opinion. Some human rights lawyers have come to his aid that government should remain above board in handling his case. We know the likes of the EFCC past chairman and also the FIRS past chairman have been let go. They've been freed. It just was recent that they declared bail for Godwin Emefiele, but put a hefty 300 million naira plus seizing of his passport. So if he was not a flight risk, having submitted his passport, why the hefty sum? And for those who wonder, about is it the 300 million that's the issue? The question is, why should you pay 300 million naira for bail when you have my passport? Because he's still meant to appear in court. But we wait to see. I think the larger lesson here, beyond the human rights challenge, is that you have to play your politics right, depending on the country that you're in. Okay, he's not the only one that we've seen that has gone down this political road going south. Even with the current administration, you can see what is going on in some states like Rivers. You can see what's going down in Ondo. You can see what's going down in some states in the north. So we need to be careful. I just hope that this administration will tilt on the side of justice and ensure that justice is not only done but seen in the eyes of everyone as regards the past CBN government.
Thank you so much, Devo Korea, for setting that. But then again, the question lies in true tribulations, you get to know your friends. But again, you would have imagined that he had worked in an administration, and in a recent interview, he had laid claims to some of those things that had said. So one was wondering if everyone wouldn't want to come up to put up that surety for him, 300. What is happening to?
It's the funny thing that it's the same party. It's not like it's a different party that will say this is persecution. It's within the same party.
Okay.
But we know that sometimes birds of different feathers sleep together in the same bed.
All right, so we'd like to get your thoughts relating to the headlines this morning on 0809 444 0981. That will be when we get this out of the way.
How much
is 300 million? He can pay from his wallet now.
Oh, from his Naira wallet, you mean? can pay from his Naira wallet.
How much do you think Emefiele is worth?
No, the thing is, it's not that
He
he
doesn't
doesn't.
have 300
So
million.
that they would come and hold him again. That where
Yeah,
did you get
you
300
have,
million
where did
from?
you get it from?
He won't pay himself. Somebody will pay on his behalf.
That's what
I
they don't
think
want.
people don't want. I think people are skeptical because, like you are
I
talking
think
about flight risk, for example, because it's not about the money. It's about persons with assets who would come forward to say, okay, I
because-
stand to say, okay, what if
Whenever
whenever you
you
need
add
him?
somebody posted bill for him.
I like this your second, this your
buying a
full
property
story.
or preparing for the future.
Hey, you can
ARM
talk
has
inside
gone
now. That's not an
covered.
issue now.
We all know there are a lot
As
of
I
apps
want
out
somebody
there
stand
promising
bill
to
for
grow
him
your
Yes.
money.
The
But
only thing you
ARM
cannot
has
believe
everything
is
you need
murder.
to go from
And he's not
where
being
you
tried for
are
murder.
to
No,
where
it's
there's
fraud.
no
That's
and
Start
so
your
you should
wealth
get
creation
We cannot
get a bill
discuss the
and
politics
by
behind
downloading
it.
the
A new
ARM
government is in
One app
place.
from the Google Play Store
Anybody
or iOS
associating with
Store.
a
Great
Emefiele is
options
at your
for
own
it's
risk.
everyone.
his own risk of
Even starting as
patronage
low as
Okay.
with the
So-
current government. That's it.
Okay.
It's just
For
the
more
politics.
information,
Nobody's
visit
wrong.
Because the only thing that is not billable is murder.
They will
And
keep
this
him
is
there
murder case.
until maybe one old woman comes to beg Tinubu and Bamifile. Then they'll now say, okay.
Give me.
ARM.
Give me.
Let's
No,
face
yes,
tomorrow.
Yes,
yes,
that kind
We're
of
back,
thing.
guys. We're back.
You'll now let him go.
Music. It's smooth music.
We're smooth 98.1 FM is still freshly pressed. Picking up the headlines this morning, I still got Devo Corey here with me and Lakunde Yusuf. So we get to the Daily Post and Lakunde, this one is next. Lagos government gives Lekki illegal building owners 1 week to leave. Else what? Walk us through this story and why is the government doing this?
Okay, so it appears now that the most popular human in Lagos this last 4 to 5 weeks is a certain Mr. Tokumbo Wahab, the Honorable Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources. If we put ourselves in the other side of government, and we look at how us residents, we are very quick at attacking the government about every time it rains in Lagos, how everywhere is flooded, how this is the 11th month of the year. Rain started about March, and for example, me speaking here, I've had to change the brake pads of my car and the whatever they call the hub in the wheel about 2 times each because the mechanic says because I drive in water all the time, that's why the things get weak. And why do I drive in water? Because when it rains, the water stays on the road and it doesn't drain quickly. And then you put that in perspective that I blame government. Now government says the reason I suffer what I suffer is because some people have gone to block the passages of where the water should ordinarily flow to, and they need to remove those buildings. So that's the background of where we are. It's unfortunate that it's happening. It's a reflection of the corruption in the system that we speak about. It is a reflection of how slow government is in reacting to things, because those houses didn't spring up overnight. It went through a process of building, minimum 6 months. What happened while those things were going on? Yes, government will say that they went to post a stop work notice. It's also a reflection of how we treat government. We don't respect government enough, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So everybody all of us know what is wrong and what is right. The builders, the owners know all these things, right? All of us are just playing on either that government will never come, or if they come, sympathy and public sentiment, because we are going to vote for them again, will stop them from doing. But I think what is right is that for the general good of everybody, that those things should be moved.
Before I drift on to get Devo Corey's response to this headline, I just also like you to respond to this. There's also this argument out there that it seems it is post-election and it's more like this demolition or these notices are coming like it's payback time or it's targeting one particular ethnic group. So how do we make people understand this is strictly about the environment and its violation of building rules?
Well, I think the government should communicate more and better so that people see. Yes, the initial demolitions may have looked ethnically altered, but the ones that are taking place currently along the Lekki coastline are correctional activities that should have happened a long time ago. The truth is, town planning didn't do its job on time, and literally all these places were now taken over by some of these hoodlums and people who were homeless. Now, beyond the corrective measure, my question is, when we've had, if you've been in Lagos, you know how VI was formed, you know how Sandfield and then Maracor was formed, Oniru, and then going down. It's gotten to this point now. So the question is, what is Lagos as a metropolitan city going to do about its huge homeless population? They need to, that should be part of the planning. So it's not just, oh, when some big men and big women sit together and say it's time for us to have a clear sight of where we live. What happens to all those human beings? It's a challenge for Lagos that they need to resolve, so that some way, somehow in the future, there will be a long-term plan. Instead of every 2 to 4 years, we start clearing people out and creating more homeless people.
Okay, thanks, Devo. And it comes across like, in your words, it's like let the homeless live and breathe also somewhere in a way. But let's get to this paper in front of you. The Business Day would scream at you now saying Nigeria records 226 crude oil theft in 1 week, according to the NNPC. So, what's the pipeline surveillance issues we've been giving out, and what's happening?
Well, I'll just like to sum this up because I'm tired of reading all these stories about crude oil theft by virtue of pipeline vandalization, illegal bunkering, where some people are creating illegal modular refineries, because it's really a insignificant prick on the real theft that is taking place that's not getting the focus that it requires. I see it as a smokescreen. When you say 226 crude oil theft incidents during a single week in November, whatever is being stolen or being damaged here is, like I said, it's an insignificant. The real crude oil theft, okay, is Nigeria should be at 1.8 million barrels a day, according to our OPEC allocation, right? For a long time, it came down to as low as 900 barrels, okay? That was during the last administration. Some efforts were made, and we came back up to, well, it's not too clear whether it's at 1.1 or at 1.3, meaning if I go by the NSA's last statement, that 400,000 crude oil barrels are being stolen daily. Calculate that amount. That is Nigerian revenue being lost. And this theft is not about someone took our crude and ran away and we couldn't find them. Because there's military surveillance when crude is being sold. It is about when crude is being sold, whilst part of it goes to the Nigerian accounts in some of the foreign JP Morgans and co. Another portion goes into private pockets. That is the real crude oil theft. That is organized crime. That is state capture, which I believe no one at the top is exempt. And I will say this, and I'll always say it, the degree of impunity will define the quality of justice that you get. Who is going to bail the cats in this country if this continues?
Thank you, Devo. So let's go on now to get Lakunle's thoughts on this headline from the Daily Trust. If you can do this in a minute, messages piling already, and we want yours to be part of it, reacting to the headlines on 0809 444 0981 will be where we pick up the messages in a bit. So this one screams here, says, INEC needs to be unbundled. That's according to former INEC chairman, Professor Atairu Jega, speaking. Unbundling, the last time we heard would have been like the power sector and the communication sector. How does that relate to INEC?
I've been trying to think through his intention with the use of the word unbundled. Unbundled as what, or into what, and why? We want to create several independent organizations to run an election. Do you want to have one that will be responsible for just registration? Do you want to have one that will be responsible for so on election day we have 3 agencies jostling to run one election? I think that rather than unbundle, I think that what INEC needs to do is to get smarter in the way it does things. Okay, of course, we know we have the difficult terrain to get to. I'd been on a boat from Yenagua to, what's the name of that place we went? To about 2.5 hours on the boat on the ocean.
It's still the same state.
Yes, and it's still the same state. Where I know I've had to also walk from Ede to Ifon. That's many years ago during my youth service, because there was
that endurance walk?
No, there was no bus to go there. I needed to get there that day. The last bus had left that afternoon, so I had to walk. That was many years ago, right? So I know there are difficult terrains around everywhere in Nigeria to get to in good time. I know there are places that are no networks and so on and so forth. So those are the kind of thinking that INEC should be having, that how do I solve these local problems in these kind of places? The issue is not about unbundling it. It's about spending the money it has, which is a first line
Charge.
charge. How they spend it smartly, how they train their staff to do the right things, and how to get them not to be enticed by the politicians.
Thank you very much, Lakunle Yusuf. So it's time to get to the messages now as we pick up this one from Ajayi Olonilua from Magodo. GRA Sherry says, there are still lots of anomalies in our electoral system, and that needs amendments. It's only in Nigeria that an elected official will shamelessly carry the mandate of one party to another one and still retain a seat. That's from Ajayi Olonilua this morning. Then I would find a message from Pastor Dakbo this morning from Ajegunle saying, can someone like Godwin Emefiele really have any genuine friends? Emefiele and friends. And then he goes, you receive what you dispense out in this world, and it's sad. Then it goes on. I've got Rexy from Surulere with a message here. Not borrowing will keep us where we are complaining about the same problems. Borrowing means we can at least do something about those problems that will hopefully lead us to economic growth. Devo, you shouldn't misuse your office to impoverish people too. Emefiele is the most inhumane CBN governor we ever had. He never thought of human rights while he was in office. He disobeyed the Supreme Court to deprive us of our money while people suffered. Rexy from Surulere. Quite some messages coming in and the timing. Let's see. Tony from Marine Beach would say, it's interesting to know that someone at least realizes that the president, former President Buhari, should come to Emefiele's aid, but we all know that that will not happen. It is a lesson to both the current and would be heads of CBN and EFCC. They should make up their minds never to play to the music of anyone up there or down in the name of politics, because nemesis sure looms. Tony from Marine Beach send that one in. I've got an Anthony's message somewhere. Okay, I've got Abbas Oladepo's message waiting. We Nigerians are amazing people. We bring emotions into everything. Emefiele was taken to court for certain charges that the judge felt his bail should be hefty, but we are here thinking it is political. When people's houses were demolished for contraventions, we don't ask them if they truly have proper documents or did the right thing, but we paint everything as a witch hunt and insensitivity on the part of government. We want a working country, yet we question how we try to achieve that. We will get there someday, hopefully. That's what Abbas sent in this morning. And I've got this one coming in from Shegun. Shegun says, Lagos has the smallest landmass in Nigeria and is receiving migrants from failed states. There is always room for improvement, but it can only do so much. Then a message from Ifako Bagada says, regarding the current demolition of properties by Lagos state government, I think the agencies of government that ought to have stopped the building of these properties in wrong places must be punished as well. Some people allow the construction after being settled. We need to see the heads rolling in those supervising agencies. Kunle Bangboye from Ifako Bagada. Then I've got Fabian from Ekbe with a message here saying, well, my concern is that as the government is bringing down houses in the same vein, they should punish those in the departments that should have prevented the building construction in the first place. So both these men, they met somewhere and they discussed and then
They're having a meeting at the moment.
So let's see. Tunuga Sunday sent in a message. Homeless people, homeless indeed. Were these homeless people born and bred in Lagos, or someone just woke up one day from another part of the country and came to Lagos without any plan as to where to lay his or her head? For how long will Lagos continue to bear the cost of misgovernance going on in other parts of the country? Then would come in Joseph Menier's message. Sincere opinion is that government claims to be on a corrective action, both pulling down buildings, closing every major market, one of which Alaba International, market, which closed environment claims. Well, yet a massive debt trap rode few steps away from local government or Joe. There's karma. That's what he had to say. Edgar's message comes in. Jim says, is Jega just realizing he served in that office and didn't realize his job description? As for Emefiele, he worked with Oga Jim, and Oga Jim owns a big. Oh, it just goes on and on. I can't even realize what. Okay, so Kenneth, I see your message. I see James's message. Idima Puza's message, I also see. Thank you all so much. Devo Korea, thank you so much for your time today. And I say thank you to Lakunle Yusuf for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And so we say thank you to the listener and who sent in messages. We'll be back here again tomorrow to get the papers across to you on time. My name is Omashaye Ashenua. Good morning.
But,